Rebecca, I want to move into the boys' dorm with Jackson. Do you support me? As soon as I opened my eyes, my best friend Sophie was looking at me with red, teary eyes in my past life. I spent 2 hours trying to talk sense into her. I talked about her reputation, her safety, her self-respect, and her future. After listening to all of it, she glared at me with pure venom. Rebecca, you're just jealous that someone actually loves me. Later on, she lured me into that very boys' dorm right before I was brutally attacked and left to die. I saw her twisted face looking down at me. Weren't you supposed to be so pure and full of self-respect? Look at you now, getting ruined like trash. I take a deep breath and grab her hand tightly.
So, support you? Of course, I support me.
You and Jackson are a match made in heaven. I hope you have 18 kids together. Go start your own soccer team. Sophie froze. Her pale cheeks suddenly flushed bright red. Rebecca, what are you talking about? We are still so young. Why would you bring up kids? I sneered in my head. If you hadn't used the excuse of going into labor in the boys' dorm in our last life, I never would have been tricked into going inside. On the outside, I put on a gossipy, excited expression. Come on, I'm just looking forward to your beautiful future. She probably didn't expect me to actually support her. She looked a bit flustered. You really agree with me moving in there? Of course, I do. I picked up my iced latte from the table and winked at her. You two are so perfect for each other. What is wrong with living together? But don't you think it might be a little unsafe? She bit her lip, looking at me with wide, pitiful eyes. My grip on my plastic cup tightened. I pushed down the surging thrill in my chest and quickly replied, how could it be? Jackson loves you so much. I would never let anyone disrespect you. You should just move in and enjoy your life with him. Hearing Jackson's name brought another blush to Sophie's fair face.
Oh, stop. Don't tease me.
I am being serious with you. There are 4 guys in that dorm room, I feel like. Before she could finish her sentence, I checked the time on my watch. I looked up. Jackson was storming toward our table in his sweatpants, looking incredibly aggressive. I let out a cold laugh. In my mind, in my previous life, he had arrived just in time to hear me say, you really shouldn't live with him in a boys' dorm. It is way too dangerous. He assumed I was trying to sabotage their pure, undying love. He slapped me so hard I ended up in the hospital. This time, I looked at his furious face and waved. Eagerly, Sophia is right here. He stopped in front of our table, casually bouncing his leg. What are you two talking about? Rebecca, you better not be talking trash about me. Sophie opened her mouth to speak, but I immediately jumped in and pointed an accusatory finger at him. Jackson, this is your fault. Sophie doesn't feel secure enough to live in your dorm. You're being a terrible boyfriend. Hearing this, Jackson narrowed his eyes. Sophie, just move in. I run that floor. My Wort is love. Once you move in, I'll have all the guys calling you the queen of the house. Sophie's face instantly turned crimson. All her previous worries vanished. She threw herself into his arms, gripping the edge of his shirt and whining softly. I watched the two of them practically glued together and remembered their legendary, earth-shattering love story. Back at the start of freshman year, Jackson was jogging on the campus track in the pouring rain, trying to look like a tough athlete. I accidentally bowled over Sophie, who was holding an umbrella and playing the role of a melancholic indie girl. That one collision sparked the flames of their epic romance. While I was lost in thought, a few soft, suggestive whimpers reached my ears. Disgust flashed through my eyes. I couldn't stand looking at this perfect couple for another second. I stood up to leave, but Jackson's arrogant voice called out from behind me. Rebecca, Sophie and I are going to hold our wedding in the dorm soon. You are her best friend, so you better show up. I looked back. Sophie's face was completely flushed. Now she lightly punched Jackson in the chest with her small fists. Jackson, what are you saying? Who holds a wedding in a dorm room? What is wrong with the dorm? Jackson hugged her tighter, lifting her slightly off the ground. All my brothers are there. It will be a party way better than those flashy, overpriced hotels. Sophie let out a soft gasp, but her eyes were sparkling. She was clearly tempted. She looked at me, with a subtle shift in her gaze. Rebecca, you will come. Right before I could answer, she added another sentence in her soft, sweet voice. You will come, won't you? Rebecca, we grew up together. Our parents are friends. You wouldn't disrespect me like that, right? She was threatening me if I didn't attend her trashy dorm wedding. She was going to run cry. Crying to my parents. I lowered my eyes. My fingernails dug deeply into my palms. But when I looked up, there was a bright smile on my face. Why wouldn't I come? You are my absolute best friend, I said, emphasizing every word with genuine warmth. I wouldn't miss your wedding for the world. Sophie nodded in satisfaction and leaned back into Jackson's embrace. I walked out of the coffee shop, forcing down the nausea rising in my throat. There was no rush. In this life, I had all the time in the world to watch them destroy themselves. I stayed in the campus library until closing time before taking a slow walk back to my building. The moment I pushed open my dorm room door, I froze. Sophie was squatting on the floor, shoving clothes into her suitcase, and my bed was completely covered in dirty, random trash. Why did you put all your junk on my bed? Before I could finish, I noticed a figure standing out on our balcony. Sir. Surrounded by a cloud of smoke, Jackson was leaning against the railing with a cigarette in his mouth. He jutted his chin at me in greeting. The boys' dorm and the girls' dorm were separated by a massive courtyard, but we were juniors now. The resident advisors had stopped doing strict room checks a long time ago. Oh, hey Rebecca, you're back. He blew out a puff of smoke. He acted like my dorm room was his own living room. Sophie didn't even look up. She just kept folding her clothes. Jackson came over to help me pack. You know, I have too much stuff. I can't carry it all by myself. I stood in the narrow walkway, trembling with rage. Move out of the way. You are blocking the door.
Jack.
Jackson crushed a cigarette out on our balcony railing and casually flicked the butt outside. He sat down heavily on Sophie's mattress and wrapped an arm around her waist. Rebecca, please don't be mad, she said, looking up at me with a subtle hint of bragging in her voice. Jackson just cares about me so much, he insisted on coming over to help. My eyes swept past her face and landed on my desk. It was completely empty. More than half of my skincare products were missing. The expensive highlighter I just bought was gone. I looked down at Sophie's bulging suitcase. I could see the familiar packaging of my own cosmetics. Sophie, did you take my things? She looked up at me, blinking her big, innocent eyes. She spoke as if she was doing me a favor. Rebecca, your skin is already so rough. Using such expensive makeup is a total waste. You should just let me use it. I have naturally great skin. It won't go to waste on me. I was so angry, I almost laughed out loud. So, by your logic, everything nice in the world belongs to you. Look how close we are. She waved her hand dismissively and went back to shoving things into her bag. You are so generous. You wouldn't hold a grudge over something this small, right? I turned my gaze to Jackson. Jackson, I thought your family was rich. Aren't you a big stock market investor? Why don't you just buy Sophie her own makeup? Squeeze Sophie's waist and let out a scoff. Money is meant for the big leagues besides makeup. Is full of toxic chemicals. Highlighter especially brings bad luck. I am just looking out for Sophie. Sophie immediately agreed. Exactly. Jackson needs to save his money for our future business ventures. I barely even wear makeup. I am naturally pretty. I'm only taking this stuff to prep for our dorm wedding. Honestly, Rebecca, when did you get so stingy? I stared at her, the corners of my mouth curling up. Your skin is incredibly thick. I definitely can't compete with that. Sophie took that as a victory and let out a smug little hum. I pulled out my phone and pointed the camera straight at her and Jackson. The flash went off. Sophie's head snapped up. What are you doing? Just keeping some memories. I waved my phone with a bright smile, documenting your beautiful life together. Jackson's face darkened. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides and reached out to snatch my phone. I flipped my hand, caught his wrist, and twisted it hard. Jackson panicked and tried to pull away, but I just applied more pressure. He gritted his teeth. His face turned beet red, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Sophie screamed from the background. Rebecca, let him go. I ignored her, staring dead into Jackson's eyes. He tried to break free twice, but his wrist didn't budge an inch. Finally, he looked away in defeat and squeezed a sentence out through gritted teeth. Sophie, give her stuff back. Sophie's eyes went wide. Jackson, I said, give it back. She reluctantly squatted down and began tossing my things back onto my desk one by one. My highlighter rolled across the wood and almost fell off the edge. I caught it smoothly and smiled at her. Sophie, you're not taking a single thing that belongs to me. Jackson stopped at the doorway. He stiffened his neck, trying to regain some dignity. Rebecca, don't you understand basic biology? Men have absolute physical dominance. I was just caught off guard. You got a lucky sneak attack. In a real fight, you wouldn't stand a chance. I didn't even bother looking at him. I was completely exhausted by his existence. Whatever you say. Their faces turned a mixture of green and white before they scurried out the door like rats. Once Sophie moved into the boys' dorm, the two of them completely lost their minds. During our investment theory class, Jackson interrupted the professor and plugged in his own USB drive. The projector displayed a chaotic green candlestick chart covered in arrows and circles. These are my trading records from last month. Jackson pointed at the screen, his voice booming across the lecture hall. I bought the dip 7 times. 1,000% profit. The professor pushed his glasses up his nose, thoroughly confused. What technical indicators are you using? I don't use that garbage. I trade on pure alpha instinct. The entire class, including the professor, was stunned into absolute silence. Late at night in the dorm, 4 shirtless guys would crowd around a laptop playing Minesweeper. Sophie posted on her social media, Jackson is holding a shareholder meeting for our future.
He works so hard for me.
Things escalated day by day. Every new event broke my understanding of human stupidity. Until today when I came across an anonymous post on the campus forum. The original poster was furious. Can the guys in the boys' dorm stop smoking inside? Do you have any respect for pregnant women? I am about to give birth. If anything happens to my baby, you won't be able to pay for the damages. Attached was a photo of a smoke-filled dorm room. In the corner, you could faintly see a bottom bunk draped in pink bed sheets. I stared at the photo. I analyzed it. I zoomed all the way in. Sitting on the floor were a pair of ugly bunny slippers. The purse hanging on the bedpost belonged to Sophie. The comment section was a total war zone. Dear God, did the frat house get haunted by a female ghost? I'm dying laughing. All the guys on that floor are in training to be stepdads. That is no ghost. She is Mother Teresa volunteering her services for the whole floor. Are you guys missing the point? The issue is the smoke. Secondhand smoke can cause miscarriages. No, you're missing the point. Why is there a pregnant woman living in the boys' dorm? You just don't get it. This is a fully integrated campus experience. Enrollment to the grave, all in one building. Am I the only one who cares about those bunny slippers? Drop the link. I scrolled through the comments one by one. I could not stop smiling. She was about to give birth. That meant Sophie was already pregnant before she ever moved into the boys' dorm. Good thing she moved out when she did. If she had stayed with me, I would have been dragged into this absolute circus. I closed the app, leaned back in my chair, and let out a long breath. Forum posts buzzed around the campus for a few days before the hype slowly died down. Sophie continued to update her social media as if she hadn't seen a single comment. Jackson bought me a whole case of milk. He says pregnant women need calcium. He loves me so much. Jackson said we need to start prenatal education. He is teaching the baby how to trade crypto. The guys in the dorm bought a gift for the baby. The attached photo was a pack of cigarettes. Every post drained my sanity, but I took a screenshot of every single one. Time flew by. Sophie and Jackson posted digital invitations on the campus message board inviting everyone to their wedding. Brothers, come witness true love. The comment section exploded immediately. The dean of students is probably weeping from the heavens right now. Absolute legends. I am stressing over finals, and these two are completing major life milestones in a twin XL bed. College is way too lenient. Is nobody going to step in and stop these lunatics? They called it a wedding, but it was really just a few cheap balloons taped to the hallway walls. The table was covered in cheap beer cans and a massive bag of sunflower seeds. Sophie wore a cheap white tulle dress. Her belly was so large, she couldn't zip up the back. She had to use one of Jackson's hoodies to cover it up. She posted a massive photo dump. Today, I am the happiest woman in the world. In the photos, she stood in the middle of the grimy hallway. Jackson had his arm around her waist. Behind them, several shirtless guys were throwing up peace signs. I would never forget those faces for the rest of my life. I quietly saved all the photos to my camera roll. Sophie's mother was not a merciful woman. These would come in handy at 6 o'clock in the evening. At exactly 6 o'clock, my phone rang. Sophie. I answered lazily. Instead of Sophie's voice, an enraged scream nearly ruptured my eardrum. Rebecca, where is she? It was Sophie's mother. I calmly moved the phone away from my ear. I haven't seen her in weeks, Auntie. Don't lie to me, she shrieked. Someone sent me pictures. They said my daughter is living in a boys' dorm and had some disgusting wedding. Perfect. Right on schedule. I thought you already knew. What? My voice became hesitant. Sophie told me she had your blessing. Silence. A terrifying silence. Then came the sound of something shattering. I blessed what? I quietly forwarded every single photo I'd saved. The hallway wedding. The beer cans. The shirtless roommates. The cigarettes beside the baby gifts. The social media captions. The forum screenshots. Everything. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, only one message arrived. Stay out of this. I smiled. I fully intended to. The next morning, the campus exploded. A luxury SUV screeched to a stop outside the boys' dorm. Sophie's mother stepped out first. Behind her came Sophie's father. Behind them, Jackson's parents. Someone had apparently forwarded the entire album to both families. Students crowded every balcony. Everyone wanted a front row seat. The shouting started before anyone even entered the building. Jackson, you little disgrace. What have you done to my daughter? Within minutes, the resident advisor, the dorm supervisor, and campus security all rushed upstairs. The entire floor shook from the yelling. Beer bottles crashed. Furniture scraped across the floor. Someone screamed. Another person cried. A few minutes later, Jackson stumbled into the hallway with a bright red handprint across his face. His father grabbed him by the collar. You said you were focusing on your studies. I am. You call this studying? He pointed toward the smoke-filled dorm room. You've turned university housing into a maternity ward. Across the hall, Sophie's mother was dragging Sophie out by the wrist. You embarrassed this entire family, Mom. Don't call me Mom. Sophie burst into tears. I'm in love. Her mother laughed coldly. Love. She pointed at the filthy mattress. You call that love? Sophie looked desperately toward Jackson. Jackson. He immediately reached for her. Auntie, uncle, don't worry. I'll take responsibility. Before he finished speaking, smack. Jackson's own mother slapped him. So, you'll support a wife and baby with what? She snatched his phone. With your crypto charts? Students watching from every floor burst into laughter. Jackson's face burned scarlet. The university acted faster than anyone expected, living together in violation of housing rules. Smoking indoors. Unauthorized residence. Alcohol. Fire safety violations. The boys' dorm floor was inspected from top to bottom. Ashtrays.
Beer.
Damaged furniture. Illegal hot plates. Everything was documented. Several students were placed on disciplinary probation. Jackson lost his position as floor representative immediately. The so-called king of the floor wasn't even allowed back into the dorm after the investigation. Without the dorm, the romance collapsed surprisingly quickly. Reality was expensive. Diapers cost money. Hospital visits cost money. Formula cost money.
Neither of them had jobs.
Jackson's investment genius turned out to be screenshots from a trading simulator. He had never earned the thousands he bragged about. He had actually been borrowing money from classmates. When those classmates demanded repayment, he had nothing left. The first time Sophie found debt collectors calling his phone every hour, she stopped posting about Destiny. Their arguments became public. You said we'd be rich. You said your parents would support us. You trapped me. You got yourself pregnant. The campus confession page filled with recordings of their screaming matches. Every week seemed louder than the last. I never commented. I never confronted them. I simply studied, applied for internships, graduated near the top of my class. The life I'd lost once before slowly returned to me. Only this time, no one could drag me down with them. Nearly 2 years later, I ran into Sophie outside the family court building. She looked 10 years older. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes. Her expensive confidence had disappeared. She recognized me instantly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, Rebecca. I looked at her calmly. What is it? Tears filled her eyes. I used to think you were jealous of me. I said nothing. She lowered her head. You warned me. You warned me over and over. I thought you wanted to ruin my happiness. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. I ruined it. Myself. She waited, perhaps hoping I would comfort her. Instead, I simply nodded. Yes. There was nothing else to say. In my previous life, I had sacrificed everything trying to save her. She repaid me with betrayal and my death. This life, I had offered her exactly what she wanted. My support. She had walked down the road herself. I walked past her without looking back. Some people don't need enemies. All they need is for everyone to stop saving them. Years later, an alumni reunion invitation appeared in my inbox. I almost deleted it. Then I saw 2 familiar names on the attendee list. Sophie Carter. Jackson Hale. I smiled. Maybe it was worth going after all. The reunion was held at a luxury hotel downtown. Former classmates chatted about promotions, graduate school, marriages, and businesses. I had built a stable career, bought my own apartment, and lived quietly. Exactly the kind of peaceful life I'd once thought impossible. As I accepted a glass of sparkling water, the ballroom suddenly fell silent. 2 people had just walked in. It took me several seconds to recognize them. Jackson's once confident posture had vanished. His cheap suit was wrinkled, his hair was thinning, and the arrogance in his eyes had been replaced by constant irritation. Beside him, Sophie looked exhausted. She pushed a stroller carrying a sleepy toddler while another little boy clung to her leg. The whispers started immediately. Is that them? I heard they dropped out. They're still together? I thought they broke up. Someone quietly answered. They did. 3 times. They keep getting back together because of the kids. The room filled with awkward silence. Jackson still tried to act important. I'm working on a huge investment project. No one asked any follow-up questions. Everyone already knew. His investment company had failed after less than a year. He'd lost friends' money and spent years paying back debts. The only person who still believed his promises had been Sophie. Until she stopped believing too. Sophie's eyes eventually found me. For a long time, she simply stared. Then she slowly walked over. I heard, she said quietly. You're doing really well. I'm doing fine. She forced a smile. I used to think I had won. I didn't answer. She looked down at her children. I thought love alone could solve everything. Another long silence. Finally, she whispered, I owe you an apology. For what? Her voice cracked. For calling you jealous. For stealing from you. For trying to make you look like the bad person. She closed her eyes. And for what I planned to do to you. The words hung between us. No one else understood what she meant. Only the two of us did. I looked at her calmly. In another life, maybe I would have waited my whole life to hear that. She frowned, not understanding. But now, I smiled politely. It doesn't matter anymore. As I walked away, I heard one of our old classmates ask Sophie, weren't you two best friends? Sophie watched my back disappear into the crowd. Her answer came after a long pause.
No.
Her eyes slowly filled with tears. She was. I just didn't know how to be one. I stepped outside the hotel. The evening breeze was cool. I looked up at the stars and smiled. In my first life, I died trying to save someone who never wanted saving. In this life, I chose myself. And that single choice changed everything. Sometimes, revenge isn't ruining the people who wronged you. Sometimes, it's living a happy, peaceful life they can never take